This video is sponsored by Linksys. Fuse is the newest legend in Apex Legends. However, he has the worst win rate of all of them, and people are desperately calling for a buff. But how would you actually buff him? Meanwhile, Horizon is one of the winningest legends, and people are calling for Horizon to get nerfed desperately because she can do things like this and becomes extremely annoying and hard to fight against. So how would you nerf her while still making her fun? Buffs, nerfs, tweaks, reworks, we're going to talk about all of it today, and not just for Horizon and Fuse. We're going to go through every single legend in Apex Legends and how I would buff them as a designer alongside with you guys in the comment section on the eve of Season 9. Hopefully, we get some of these results in the next few days. But before we get into that, guys, I wanted to say and address the issues I've been having on my Twitch stream. A lot of you know I've had a couple of pain points, most of them being with my internet connection. Oh, my stream is a little stuttery? Okay, gotcha. Here, let me cancel. And anyone who's watched my stream knows that isn't the first time that's happened, whether it be at a clutch play at the end of a game or a great moment on stream with my friends that now I can't capture or share with the world like I would want to for my business. That's why Linksys reaching out with the Hydra Pro 6E Wi-Fi mesh router was so huge for me, and not only that, my girlfriend living at home with me sharing the Wi-Fi that we're currently on. The three things I love about this are the easy setup and easy control to just get this device going, the fact that it has the highest device capacity ever with 4 times the channels of current Wi-Fi systems, so you can handle all the traffic of you and multiple people using different streaming devices in your house, like when my girlfriend's on a work from home Zoom call and I'm also doing a Twitch stream. And lastly, the powerful Wi-Fi 6E mesh coverage, meaning you're not going to have these dark spots in your house where you can't have any internet or it just doesn't work. This will give you coverage of the internet you're paying for everywhere in your house like you deserve. So big shout out to Linksys and the Hydra Pro 6E for helping me solve my internet issues and allowing me to focus on making content for you guys, which is what I love to do and what you guys want to see in these videos. Also, if you are interested in content creation or you take yourself seriously as a gamer or just live with a lot of people, this is a must-have. I'll put it in the link in the description below. You guys can click there, check out more, and grab yourselves one because trust me, this will be a game changer if you are having internet problems. Use code RainDayGaming6E for up to $200 off your purchase. All right, let's get back to the video today because I did really get excited about talking about the design aspect of these characters, and I have a whole list. So we're going to go through this list, and we're going to talk about what are the pain points of a designer. But I do want to mention this one thing before we get started, because you have to set the table of what are these designers doing? Why am I designing something? And that's where we get into the goals of being a designer. I have literally been in these design rooms, and I have been as an esports caster, somebody who was invited because I was talking about representing the esports side of things. So you have to remember, this is a pillar of design, esports. There's also a pillar of design, which is AAR or ARPU, which is called ARPU, which is average revenue per user. How much money am I making the game? The other thing that's very important to remember is retention. How long are people playing the game after they join the game? Are they leaving after 3 games, a week, 2 weeks? How many players return after playing for 30 days in the next 30-day period? These are all things that you're trying to consider. So retention, ARPU, and then of course, there's goals of departments like the design wants to introduce a character that has something very unique and is a character for players who want to play at a slower pace. Let's take a look at like Caustic and Gibraltar. These are specific characters designed for people who maybe want to play a little slower, who want to hide out, who don't necessarily want to be in the thick of the action. So there are design goals, right? And then there's statistical balance goals, which are this character might be super bad and we need to make his play rate higher, like Fuse. Fuse has the lowest win rate in all of Apex Legends. And there's other ones where maybe they're overtuned, like Pathfinder or Wraith, constantly always at the top of these lists. Maybe they need to get tuned down. This is all the things you have to consider when looking at why these design decisions happen. And another thing that you may not mention, and I'm not sure if this is what's happening, but you have to consider that there's money on the line here with the revenue, that if Fuse is going to get this huge storyline with Maggie or Caustic has this big thing coming up, and Fuse is just a player nobody's playing, that's going to be tough. So you want to make sure that maybe, hey, in 6 months we have this big Fuse event. Let's get Fuse with a higher pick rate so that people are playing him more and enjoying him more as a character. These are all things to consider. I know it's a lot, but I want to set the stage as to what this conversation will be. So let's talk about Fuse. Fuse is in a weird spot. He needs the biggest buff of all because he jumped in as a legend that was not a very successful legend. This is when I first play tested Fuse. I had an issue with him and this ultimate. This is not a designer's fault. I think they've made this as strong as you possibly can. It's a nice initial chunk of damage. It's good burning damage. It looks to be about 75 damage. But unfortunately, it's not threatening enough. People have found ways to get in and out of this. And unfortunately, there's just not a lot of situations that pose this to be a real threat when it comes to the moment of Apex Legends. There's too much mobility right now with Horizons and Octanes and just ways to get around this that it's almost not really a threat playing on the ground. So this is one of the pain points that he has. The other thing is his Knuckle Cluster, which is really good, but it has a really long cooldown because it's a spammable ability. 20 seconds is kind of long for that. And it's also one of those things that doesn't quite hit that hard. So he's got a lot of average abilities. What I would look to do to probably tune is to take his Knuckle Cluster and add some element of tactical value to it. And I've seen this on Twitter, which is really great. But if you want Fuse to have a little bit more tactical value, maybe the people that he's shooting this Knuckle Cluster to get slowed as well significantly for 5 seconds after they get hit with it. Maybe there's something around, not necessarily a concussion, but more of an effect that happens negatively to them. And that's another thing. You don't really want these negative effects. The other tuning is that maybe let's give this more damage. I want this to be a little bit more punishing. If I land a Knuckle Cluster every 20 seconds in a fight onto someone, it would be great for that to be more damaging and really feel like I've hit them with something. Even if you increase the cooldown, I think having more lethality to Fuse is where he's missing a lot of his choice, a lot of his success. And until he gets lethality for a character that is intended to be lethal with a ton of grenades, a ton of spam, a ton of damage, right? He doesn't really bring a lot of utility. Then you're really not going to see Fuse, I think, elevate. So that is what I would look to tune. He is a lethal character. He's not lethal enough. So let's find a way to increase his lethality, either on the ultimate, damage in the middle somehow, or obviously on the Knuckle Cluster. So that's Fuse. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. The tactical idea of seeing your enemies when you get hit, like highlighting them for your teammates or something, that's interesting. It's an interesting idea, but again, I think it's lethality that's going to change that for him. Now, let's talk. We're going to save Horizon for a little bit later. Let's talk about Rampart. Rampart, when I look at Rampart, I think Rampart is a legend that has been misunderstood since the beginning. She has a really cool passive with increased magazine capacity and faster reloads when using LMGs and miniguns. So this has been great for things like the Spitfire meta that Rampart has actually had a pretty successful time in. However, it's not something that I think it has gotten her to where people respect the part. They don't respect the Rampart yet. And so what I would like to see changed on her is, what do you consider is her real goal? Her real goal is to set up. And as a setup character, you have these interesting dynamics where you're either OP or you're not good enough. And this is the line that these designers, when creating a character that has walls, that's fortress. I saw this a lot with a character called Inara in Paladins, where she was very tanky and had a wall and was just about not dying. And she was either not good enough because she doesn't do much damage outside of that, or she was OP because she's so defensive and she also does damage like everybody else. And Rampart is basically at the point where she does enough damage in the right situations where I could see why they don't want to buff that. But she's also just not a character that can be really, really good. Otherwise, she's going to be so frustrating. So there's a bit of a catch-22 here. Yes, they could be a buff. If you were going to buff Rampart, I'd like to see it on the minigun. I think Sheila is one of those weapons that it just hasn't fit for me. The impact of it has never been enough. I never really get excited about using it. I don't feel it's mobile enough. I don't feel and it's not meant to be mobile, but I just don't feel like in a very mobile game, this is something that makes a lot of sense to do. The opportunity cost. Let me just say this. Let me just give you an example. The opportunity cost to do this, okay, to someone and stand still. It's not that much different. I mean, if I had a few headshots, it's just as fast. So why would I stand still and be here? So this has to be so powerful that it's just the worst, and it would get people excited. Or you have to look at, okay, I really need to just fight normally. I love her walls. I think these are great. This is my favorite part of her kit, just the walls and how easy that is. I think they've tuned it right so that these set up a little faster. But ultimately, if you want to buff Rampart, I just think it's got to be around the smoothness and the ease of using this Sheila. You guys let me know. My goal would probably be, let's add a little bit of damage to Sheila, maybe by a bullet or two, so that, again, it could feel more lethal when she's using it, and encourage people to take that risk. Otherwise, for me, I do not see Rampart getting too much love in Season 9. So let's see, maybe that might be the turning point, just with some stuff on Sheila. All right, let's move next. That's not an easy one, for sure. Loba. Now, I think Loba is in a really good spot from a feels perspective, except for tactical. Loba, eye for quality. It's a great passive. It feels good. You just love seeing the purple loot. This is another thing that I want to get into, because this is one of the pillars of design to talk about as well. Feels good. So when things give a character something that makes a legend feel, a player feel good using them, that is what you want as a designer, because it's going to lend to a popular character, and popular characters are more successful. They have more average revenue. They can generate more revenue because people will buy more skins for them. If more people are playing the character, think about this. I play this character, everyone plays this character, so everyone wants the skin for that. The character nobody plays, nobody wants the skin for that, right? So that, just think about it like that. Like the popularity is actually a financial indication too of some of the success of some of the things that they're going to go for with events and who gets to do this. So Loba is a very popular character. Physically, she's a very popular character. I think her black market is really good. I love the tweaks and changes where they added the ability to get unlimited ammo. The speed that it comes up is super great. The Q is the problem. Her Q is her problem as to why she is what she is. I think people again overestimated at the time when Loba came out. I don't know if it was an overestimation, because we had, there's still so many more legends that are constantly coming out, and I think Horizon and now Octane's new jump pad just shift what our ideas of movement are. But that is not incredible movement nowadays in Apex Legends, and it's way too slow. The cost to use it and stand still, you die a lot. I die a lot throwing the burglar, and I guarantee you guys die too. I'm not the only one. So how do you do this? I don't know, man, but I've had moments where I throw that thing and it's like, what? I could have just walked faster to get there. And you can't have that for a character that's their Q. So I think that's really where the time for Loba needs to be spent. There's bugs around it too where you'll throw it and it won't come back. I know it must be a difficult thing to program with some of the collisions and the way it might get stuck or not go through certain things. And sure, there's some people who have the perfect spots. They slip it through some, there's a crack in, there's a hole right there and they slip it through and they get out to the other side. There's some moments like that, cool. But I ultimately think that Loba has mobility, and she's been crippled in her popularity and her ability at a high level because the mobility's kind of been like half there. It's been tamed. And so unleash it a little bit. I don't think it would be a problem if Loba could move faster on this. I would increase not only the speed of the travel of her ring, but I would allow you to, through that, hopefully be able to create more distance. So not just same distance and you go faster. I would hope that velocity increase would allow you to maybe get up there. I know they're worried about it, and a character who can blink kind of like this needs a little bit of opportunity cost. I keep using that word, but I'm just saying they need to kind of stay still a little bit in order to get this huge reward. But I feel like I should be able to get up there, right? Look at where I landed, man. I landed here. That's I think the big issue. And whether the idea of the design is right, I just feel that the way it plays out feels frustrating to a player sometimes. And you guys let me know what you think about that. That's my Loba. That's what I do for Burglar's best friend. Revenant. I actually have Revenant pretty clearly thought out. So I think Revenant, big issues. I would look at kind of a buff nerf with Revenant. So for me, Revenant is not a character that feels good at all to play against. And this is really where you start to have some characters that make other players so upset when they do the correct things against them that they want to quit the game. And it's a really tricky spot for designers. We were talking about Sheila. Now, Sheila getting a little bit more damage might be enough to make it more fun. Maybe not, but at the end of the day, it's just a tough setup. This is a hard character. But when you're on the other end of Sheila, I'm sure it sucks. So that's why they have to be very careful about tuning this. These walls are great to play around and fun. Sheila's really, I think, where Rampart has to break down because you just can't get that fun. Revenant's the same thing. And with his silence,
Just shut it.
It just feels like when you get in this, look at this. It just clutters you, man. You don't feel, none of this feels good to have in you, around you. It clutters your whole screen. It does a big noise. And then all your abilities, when you actually do run in it, let's change so you guys can see what it looks like with somebody else.
I'm not done yet.
Oh, that won't work? Dang, I didn't know. My bad. All right, well, I thought it would do. Anyways, on the receiving end of that, it locks your screen. It gives you this visual, and it just feels bad. Plus, you can't use your abilities. I mean, that stinks too. So you wouldn't want to touch that. I don't think you nerf that. I think his death totem is one of the big keys, though, where you can nerf Revenant. And I have a really interesting way where I'd like to buff him, and I'm curious what you guys think. So the death totem, personally for me, is one of those things that should be executed perfectly to succeed. The death totem should not be this kind of big spammable thing, which is, it seems like it's become. Because again, when someone rushes you, 3 teams rushing you with death totems, you just feel like this is the worst thing ever. However, when you're doing it, it's fun. So again, you're creating a negative experience on the back end, and those are the legends that people really get frustrated at when they become good, because they're just creating bad experiences in the game. The death totem, I would just add a little bit more time between when you can use it. I would just make it a little bit more opportunity cost here. So when someone actually throws that totem down and they actually play, there's a thought process to, okay, this is the time I'm going to totem. And if they get it right, they succeed. They get that great push, and it works. If they get it wrong, they waste their totem and they don't get it back again, and now Revenant's just running around as Revenant. Now, I think Revenant, for me, I like him as a buff, personally, for his own personal movement. Revenant has this great passive where he crouches and he moves pretty fast. I would like to see this increased. I think it could go a little bit faster as well, because the idea of Revenant for me, and what made me excited about this character, was his movement potential, his ability to climb walls and do all that stuff. I'd like to see this speed increase by about 50% so he could scale even higher and faster and taller walls. And I'd like to see his crouch speed increase, because that to me feels good for Revenant. Think about the legends that you like to play that feel really good. You know, those Octane probably feels better than anybody right now. And part of it is that he's just so dang fun. Stimming is just fun. It feels good. Pathfinder, people love Pathfinder until he was nerfed. Why? Because when you hit a great grapple, it feels good. Ziplines feel good to move quickly. And so I think Revenant, take away his pain points, death totems, silences, give him more of what makes him feel good as an individual legend, as a kind of like a buff nerf that I would do for him to give him some hype in this next season. Let me know what you guys think about that. Crypto is in a pretty decent spot. However, I think Crypto right now ultimately, again, has a kit that, when you look at Neuralink, Crypto and his teammates see what a surveillance drone detects up to a 30-minute distance. Could be one of the best passives in the game when you use it right. With the surveillance drone, aerial camera drone, 40-second cooldown if destroyed. Good cost of, you get it off, you get your EMP. If someone shoots it, you don't get your EMP. You have 40 seconds left. That's great. Reloads your weapons when you go in and out. The EMP deals 50 shields, slows player, decoys, traps, gets rid of Watson stuff. Crypto's in, I think, a great spot as a legend. And so for me, of the few legends I would pass on doing a lot of sweeping changes on right now, it would be Crypto. And I feel like Crypto's probably in a good spot. And you guys have to let me know. I think we're seeing him like 30% of the time in competitive on a lot of teams. He's quite successful. I think 50% of the time, actually. So this is a legend that, when you consider what he does, it would be hard to make him do something much different. And I think if Crypto ever does start to call for some buffs or some nerfs, he's been changed so many times. I don't want to spend too much time on him today. I think he gets a pass from me in Season 9. You guys let me know. Watson. I think Watson should get a buff this upcoming season. I think Watson probably is I think Watson particularly, I actually think Watson is a character that could use more of her shield regen buff than before. And I think playing the shield regen mode allowed me to understand that her passive is insanely, obviously, powerful. We'll see it here, because Watson essentially regen shields now at a pretty decent level. But the problem is it's very negligible when you're wanting it to count. Unlike Octane, you see I'm starting to regen my shield, right? You see that's happening? When you compare that to Octane, it's quite different. And I think there might be some standardization there on the shield and on the health. I know she's just giving herself shield and he's not paying the cost. She's not paying any cost to, take that shield away to then get shield back by, doing a movement skill, which Octane does to himself with his stem. So that makes sense. But I just think you could tweak this up a little more, because I think this was close to getting Watson really excited. She's not people excited about Watson. She's not a legend that I need to have in high-level play for right now. I'm okay without the Watson meta currently. But as you can see, it's taken me this long to get just a shield cell's worth of healing. That's a long fight. That's really not going to have a lot of in-fight impact, which is where you may want to add some value. I'm pretty sure they're okay with where Watson is at, and that was more of a perceptual kind of feels good buff. It also could have been that they were just a little nervous about, hey, is this going to be OP? We should test it out first. But I think they can tune this up a little bit. I would like to see that and kind of get some more individual moments with Watson outside of the stuff that she does to support her team with the pylon and with the fences and stuff like that. That's what I would do for Watson. Just tune that up a little bit. Octane. Octane is man, wow. How fun is Octane right now? Octane is fun. Now, the designers, I think Daniel Klein, he was talking a little bit about what he would do to Octane, and he's thinking of really giving you, the way that I heard it, it was less of your movement for a period of time, but faster, right? So almost a much bigger sprint, but then also paying for it with more life. And you could tell that regardless of if I said that correctly or that was the exact intention, their goal is to do the stem, right? And to look at the stem as the pain point. The interesting thing about the stem and what kind of made me surprised as that being the focus is that would be a way to nerf him. Yes, because when you deal with anybody's health or shield, you're basically doing these things that are kind of like these base values that are almost guaranteed to get base statistical values up. Like Lifeline heals herself. She used to heal quickly. On average, you're going to out heal somebody else and have more life than them in a fight. Meaning, if you fight, you're probably going to end up with your health and they might end up with none. And eventually that will snowball in statistics so that, on average, Lifelines win more encounters than others because Lifelines are healing. They're shielding faster. These are the things that allow you to survive in this game. So when you tweak somebody's health, yeah, that's, if he has less health than he would have had last patch, given the same circumstance he's performing, he'll probably lose more. The thing is, though, isn't the stem coupled? I mean, this idea that the stem by itself is the issue doesn't really feel like that's the case. And I'm not sure if that's where I would personally look to touch it. I agree with their idea to leave the jump pads alone because I think this only adds fun to people in the game. People love these jump pads. They're so fun. This just gives Apex like that special movement feel, which we all love. So I actually don't want them to change it, even though the stem for Octane was never really a problem until the jump pad got this huge distance buff and double jump. So the idea that, the stem is going to be the exact thing that is going to turn Octane into just, leveling him down a little bit. I'm really excited to see how that pans out if they do end up doing it. I would probably myself look at the coupling of the actual jump pad, but my heart, and for the actual benefit of the game, not for statistics to balance this character, I would truly just leave him be. I just think Octane's really fun. I know it's very selfish, but I would say leave Octane be. And if you're going to nerf him, I don't mind the way that you would take a little bit more health out of that and a little bit of a faster burst. So if you do choose to do it, you're basically, ooh, I took a big chunk of health, but I'm around this corner already. And boom, now it's done and I'm ready to fight. And so I've got to use that, again, even more correctly. That just gives you a little bit of a baseline nerf, and high skill level players can still use it pretty well. All right, let's move into Mirage. Mirage is a weird one, man. I have a theory about Mirage. I believe Mirage is actually quite a decent win rate and encounter rate legend. It's weird, but I just wonder, why would Mirage not be getting all of these buffs all the time? Because everyone's always saying, no, Mirage isn't that great, or, where's Mirage? Never played in competitive. He's never played in any high level of Apex. So I actually believe that his encounter win rate, which is when he comes up against another legend and fights, does he get down or do they get down? I bet that's actually leans either around 50% or maybe a little higher than that. I think he's right around average, maybe even slightly above average. because you underestimate how valuable in a duel just someone shooting that thing is. A lot of people just shoot the first thing they see. I mean, I feel like he gets downs. His real issue is he doesn't bring anything really to the team, and I'm just not sure if that's going to be something that he'll ever be able to do. My one thought was a little bit more information gathering for the entire team when a decoy is destroyed. If you make that information more powerful by somehow, you know, it'd be really weird. It'd be almost in Bloodhound's trajectory to highlight something, like somebody shoots that and then all of a sudden the enemy's highlighted around the corner for half a second. I mean, it would be cool. I mean, it would be valuable if the entire team could see something like that. It'd be an individual version of Bloodhound's awareness, and Mirage gets that information. But I just think that's the only way when you start adding information about other opponents within his kit. That's the only way that I could see him being really team oriented. Some of you guys had some great ideas on make his decoys be able to like heal and do even more things.
I'm running out of ideas.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think the bamboozling of the decoy is kind of already enough for most people. So I don't need to see the decoy picking his nose to be thinking that's actually the real Mirage or not. In the heat of it all, it's kind of hard to tell, to be honest. So good Mirage players, they're doing well. I believe Mirage actually is in a pretty decent thing. Plus, think of how much of a character Mirage is to the Apex universe. To not have that guy and not have this character like be the worst of the totem pole. Like, we know Fuse is worse than them. We know Rampart's worse than them. We know there are legends that are worse. And so he can't be that bad. He can't be that bad. So I actually think he's okay. Oh, Caustic, another legend, man, that just is in trouble. And the only thing I would do to him is maybe if you're having a statistical issue with Caustic, I would look at two things for buffs for Caustic and Gibraltar. I would look at Fortified as a tweak to maybe take Fortified up from 15 to 20%, which means that you're doing less damage to them. It's true. But they have bigger hitboxes, and it's really hard because these characters have to be balanced around their playstyles, but also their hitboxes. And that's very, very hard when you're talking about the bigger characters. Caustic is just not my cup of tea, man. I do not like Caustic. I don't think Caustic is a fun character to play personally. I don't mean to make anybody, upset. I liked seeing different metas in pro play, so I love when Caustic finally had his moment in pro play. But he's just not my style. He's not my style. I'm not interested. And unfortunately, I think that Caustic has been nerfed enough to where people are kind of slowing their roll on playing him. One thing I thought to make Caustic a little bit more enjoyable, and the reason I don't really like him, is because, again, he's not a very fast character. He doesn't really provide anything as far as movement or playing outside of the playstyle. He's a setup character, just like Rampart and Watson, where you either aren't really taking advantage of your abilities if you're running around and fighting. Like, you're not like going here like, oh yeah, I mean, you might be able to, but look at how long that takes to just, a lot of times you're like either setting up and throwing that or you're fighting. You're not doing two things at a time like Octane, where you're, I'm hitting a jump pad, I'm coming over to you, I'm doing that, I'm Horizon, I'm throwing my Q, I'm jumping up in the air, I'm shooting you, I'm sliding down. He's a setup character. So one thing you could do is, because people really don't like the gas, one thing you could do is actually take his ultimate, and instead of it lasting that long and doing that much damage or whatever, you could have it more of like a throwable bomb. Like a throwable, like, what if this wasn't this, like, I'm gonna just kill you slowly? What if it was like,
noxious gas
boom, like a little burst, like a little 50 damage burst, and then like a couple of ticks, and then it's done. Maybe not 50, maybe it's a little more than that, but, and then it charges faster. I mean, this lasts a really long time. This is, I'm gonna set up, you can't push me, I'm a defensive character, but you might be able to add some more interesting elements to faster forms of defense. Like someone who pushes your house, you don't have that set up for 20 seconds, but what you do have is someone gets hit by that when they're pushing, you throw it on them, boom, they're gonna lose the fight right there. And that's something that, to me, I considered. Maybe he has two ultimates coming up back to back, and he's getting them faster, he's throwing these bombs out, and he's a little bit more of a different style. This is a totally different design aspect for him. I'm just throwing my ideas out there because I currently don't like setup characters, and that's just me. That's just my opinion. So that's what I would do if I was changing him. If you want to buff him, not sure he needs a buff, probably doesn't perceptually, I would look at Fortified because it's a pretty simple buff to just help somebody. Bangalore. Bangalore is really fun. I think Bangalore is a great character. I believe that ultimately Double Time is a really good passive and one of the best. I think she's a character that probably is a pretty good spot in terms of win rate. I think that's probably why she doesn't get a lot of tweaks either. She's not really a problem child. She's probably in the middle of the pack as far as win rate. She might even be higher than usual as far as encounter rate as well, because again, natural movement speed when she's fighting, these things are going to scale over every fight that she has of every level of player of Apex Legends. So I think that's going to give her some advantages. The smokes are great. There's really nothing to change there. This is just a classic kit that's always worked. It's always been popular. There's never really been a problem. The ultimate's been the only stickler, and when you have Rolling Thunder, they've kind of done a good job of slowly but surely making it a little bit more relevant. It does go down faster. It does add value tactically. I think this fits with her character perfect. You know, the only thing I could say is maybe you would have a little bit more value from these ultimate accelerants so that you could get that ultimate a little sooner. It would be kind of annoying to have a lot of Bangalore ults all the time in game, but I do think for a Bangalore player and for having a little bit more of like reliability on her gameplay, having this ultimate more often would be great. Think of it in a team situation, knowing Bangalore is going to have her ult and playing around that when you're in those big team fights, and not just like, does she have it or does she not? I think that's an important thing. So maybe a little bit of speed on the ultimate charge. You know, but otherwise, I think this is just a fantastic kind of character design. It's very simple, and in that way, we know exactly what we're getting, and so do the players who are playing against her. And so that's what I think is a really good choice. And she doesn't really make a lot of people mad, and she's just fun to play. That's a great design right there. Wraith. You know, Wraith is one of those interesting ones. So she just had this interesting kind of journey of being the best character forever and finally getting some hitbox adjustments that turned the dial and maybe enforced people to stop playing her, and now switching towards like Octanes and stuff in high-level pro play. I think when Wraith shows up, we have to consider that she's just a legend that's had rework after rework. They've changed the way her passive works.
Now for the right choice.
Sorry, not her passive. They've changed the way her Q works, so now it's a slow, long start at the beginning, but now she moves very fast and technically can cover a little bit more distance. They've changed her ultimate so that the ultimate now doesn't cover as much distance at all. I believe it's like 25% less or something like that. There's so many changes that have happened to this character to kind of bring her down, and the hitbox one seemed to work. That seemed to be the final straw for a lot of these pro players. And so in that way, I think if you want to buff Wraith, which is the only thing I would do at this point, I would look at consistency and how much that matters. Low profile is something that's often been talked about Legends, where it's a really easy way to balance them. And again, retuning any of the things you just did to Wraith may not be valuable. One thing I would say is that because her element of movement and is kind of being, I would say Wraith's utility has been a little bit more questioned with the jump pad and stuff like that. You could consider going back on one of the earlier nerfs to the distance of her ultimate to make that a little bit more competitive again, so that that ultimate is just a little bit farther. There's also a way to give her more speed while setting this up, something to give her a little bit on the ultimate, because I think that's kind of the distance. Now, that's already really far, man. As I say it, I go, really? Do I need that to be longer? I just think her rotation ability to do that, you know, she's compromising being on the ground, whereas Octane just, you know, does that, and we've seen it work. So unfortunately, sometimes people are dethroned. Wraith will always be a great legend, but I think really the hitbox is what made the difference. So since her hitbox is bigger, one quick thing to improve statistically would probably be taking away low profile. If you guys wanted to do that, let me know. Let me know what you would think about Wraith. It's not a complete rework, because she's just had a lot of reworks. Okay, so let's talk Pathfinder, because there's a very interesting suggestion that was on the Twitter thread I asked you guys about that I wanted to suggest as the buff or the change I would make for Pathfinder, because Pathfinder's in a situation where I don't really think he deserves a buff statistically or that much of a nerf. He's been nerfed several times. They've balanced him many times. They've changed the way the grapple works, so the closer you are or the worse your grapple, the more of a cooldown you get back quicker, which basically, essentially, you hit a harder grapple, a bigger grapple, you're going to get a longer cooldown as the penalty. But if you hit a bad one, you mess up, you'll get it back, and you'll be able to do it again. It's a cool adjustment, and I think it's helped lower level players learn Pathfinder more and not be penalized. And taking low profile off of his hitbox was something that really, I think, helped, considering that he's no longer the favorite in the meta for the recons, because Crypto and Bloodhound both do a lot of different things for the team, and he's not the standout individual player anymore the way he was with just a standard 15-second cooldown. That was a big difference for Pathfinder, and unfortunately, I don't know if those days are coming back. But one thing we can look at, because remember, Crypto, Bloodhound definitely better individually and as a team. But at least when you look at Crypto, his utility from the recon is great, from the drone is great. Pathfinder's utility is from the zipline. And it would be kind of a really nice thing to be able to break this zipline down and dismantle it like Loba dismantles her shop. I think that's a great idea. You know, the ability to somehow find a way to get rid of this and say, you know what? No, you can't ride it. And maybe some team's pursuing you across some area, and you as a Pathfinder are there waiting, and you take it away, and they all fall into the hole. Think of the cool moments that would be, and it maybe gives you some ultimate regen back. This is from the Brofer's Grim that I saw. That's the person who I saw. There's probably others who suggested it, but I wanted to shout that one out for the suggestions on the Twitter, because I think this is a cool one, and that's what I do for Pathfinder. Otherwise, I think he's in a pretty good spot, and there are other legends who will probably receive a lot more focus coming in to Season 9. So Lifeline, we already know what she's getting. Lifeline is getting a little bit of a nerf where the shield that she uses to pick somebody up, right, to make sure that they're healing up with the DOC drone and reviving when they're down, that is going away. I believe the DOC drone will still revive them. However, she will not have the shield attached, and that's a big decision. It means that she can't play around it anymore. It means that you're really exposed. It means that revive is probably just going, unless it's behind a corner, probably going to be worse for the player than holding up a you know, a downed shield, it feels like, because you're just going to get shot at instantly, and you're really going to be, I don't know, it's going to be an interesting situation. It's kind of a danged if you do, danged if you don't. The thing that I do like about it, though, let's say that's happening, is that the care package is getting a buff. Now, the care package has become obsolete with so much loot and so many different ways to get loot for her. She opens loot bins and she gets extra items in them. Lifeline is a character that absolutely thrives on having a lot of loot, but when the care package came down, you people don't realize you're also calling enemies' attentions to you. So people are using the care package less and less in these late game moments, because it's like, first of all, I'm already geared up. Why would I use my care package? And I'm tell everybody where I am. I already have a purple shield. I'm fine. And that's where this change, where she gets guaranteed upgrades in the care package, is going to come in handy. People were also saying, yo, she should get an heirloom, and she should get an actual, you know, nice weapon. One of these. Get a Kraber, get a Peacekeeper, get a Prowler in her care package every now and then. That would make Lifeline much better, to be honest. If you could randomly get one of those, that would be awesome. I don't know what that would look like, but people would be playing Lifeline a lot more. I just think we need to be aware of all of those things when we're looking at Lifeline. Now, I would probably say that this is going to be a cool nerf. I agree with them. And let's leave it at that. We've only got 2 more, guys. All right, Gibraltar. How would I deal with Gibraltar? I think Gibraltar is in a pretty cool spot. I think Gibraltar, ultimately, I would assume that he wins quite a lot as far as winning. And I would also assume that his encounter win rate is not as high. And so how do you make sure that someone wins an individual fight more and is better for the players playing them, but also doesn't get too buffed so that the things that he does, his shield and his defensive bombardment, don't contribute, you don't add to more of the reason why people with Gibraltars on their teams win more. I think you look at the shield. His shield has been nerfed quite a bit, but I think you look at the personal item and take that shield. Now that it bleeds through, remember, it did get nerfed. It has bleed through now. So a Kraber shot's going to hit, bleed through, and he's still going to take a ton of damage. Maybe turn that back to 60, maybe to 75 on the shield instead of the 50 for the gun shield. And that is something that I think you could consider for Gibraltar to change. That's my thought. Now, lastly, Bloodhound.
Return to the hunt.
Bloodhound, well, actually, it's not lastly. I have Horizon 2 to talk about. So Bloodhound is one of those characters that I believe is in a very great design spot. It's super fun to play, but here's what I would change. Bloodhound scans happen too often. I hate Bloodhound scans. I think they're one of the worst things to happen to me in a game. I hate the feeling of getting scanned. It just feels oppressive. So I think you have a dual benefit somewhere where Bloodhounds can get more for their scans if they achieve a goal. And if they don't achieve a goal, they can get less for their scans, and they could just get the same amount. I believe that Bloodhound should be a kind of a minigame character, and I like the way they went with that with the ultimate, to where if you get a knockdown within the last 15 seconds of your ultimate, you're going to increase your ultimate, which is beautiful, the time on your ultimate. And what that means is that I would just say, when you're in the ult and you're scanning and you're getting these fast scans, I'm going to show you here, because when you're in your ult, you can scan faster. So the first cooldown was 25 seconds. When you're here, right? What I would do, man. Oh, sorry. So look, see, look at the scan, right? It went all the way down, and now I'm gonna get my scan again, and I'm scanning, and I got another 8 seconds. I would turn that to either 10 seconds, or I would say you get your scan back, okay, in your ult. And if you want another scan, you get a knockdown, right? You get a knockdown, and you get your scan back, almost like a reset. And I think that would be cool. So essentially, if the Bloodhound's just sitting there scanning you, he's not getting all these scans. But if he's going out there, he's actually fighting, getting a knockdown, he's snowballing, and he's getting more and more scans. And it encourages that Bloodhound to take a risk and be more aggressive. You can predict his play because you're going to know, or their play, whoever it is, girl or guy playing Bloodhound, they're going to, talking about the player themselves, not the actual character. You know, I mean, really, when you consider that Bloodhound's play maybe gets a little bit more predictable for the player against them. And it also is just, I think, a really kind of cool, fun mechanic to give people a reason to see if they can do it and get cool clips and stuff. So I like that. That's already a lot of how the Ultimate plays anyways. And I just think adding scans to that and limiting the amount of scans that you're seeing with a Bloodhound player would be the nerf in the direction I'd go. Because Bloodhound's literally meta, very meta. And he can scan recon beacons, so he's high level. So all of that.
I'm back, dears.
Oh my goodness, Horizon. What would we do? Horizon is an interesting legend, man. Horizon is the type of legend that low profile would make sense on, I think. I've looked at the way that Horizon moves, and she's not someone that I would personally want to nerf, but I have to think like a designer here, unfortunately. Her upwards mobility is really what leads her to being frustrating for most players. And I think if you have this upwards mobility, you know that you can do damage pretty accurately up here, and people are going to have such a hard time not only shooting you, because it's really hard to do that in game and look outside of your current plane of vision, look up, but they're going to have a hard time tracking you, even just seeing where you are. And so that's where I would say with Horizon, instead of getting rid of this, which is just so fun and so part of her kit, because she has the passive that when she comes down off of it, she has a soft landing. I would just say keep this as a fun piece of mobility and do a couple of things. Either, wow, did I just get kicked from the firing range? That's funny. So I would do a couple of things with her. I would basically just essentially put her into a position where you keep her fun mechanics, but you also make her more susceptible when she does get hit. And I think that's where low profile may help. So Horizon is going to take a risk to get up here, and she is going to be more exposed, and she will get lit up if somebody has the right shots on her, but she's still going to be fun, and people are still going to be able to do the things that they like doing on her. However, I feel like the community won't be happy. I don't think they'll be happy with just that. I think they'll want a little bit more for Horizon. And so one thing that I would say is I think a big key is that, yes, the time she's in the air matters. The distance she goes up in the air matters, but also her accuracy, the ability to deal damage so well from up here also matters. You could tweak either of those things. I think you could probably tweak a little bit of the mid-air accuracy. I think you could also maybe have it be a few seconds up in the air less, so that she doesn't have the amount of time up there. Might be a really interesting maneuver, because maybe it's this instant thing that she can do and get up, use the movement quickly, time it out, and then she's dropping, or she's where she wants to go. She's not living up there. I think that might be where you would see the most dramatic Horizon nerf, but I'm a little worried about it, because I personally think she is a great low profile fit, because I just want to see Horizon stay fun. I love her kit, and I know a lot of you guys do as well. So let me know. We've gone through, let's just make sure. Revenant, Loba, Rampart, Horizon, Fuse, we talked about. Crypto, Watson, Octane, Mirage, Caustic, Bangalore, Bloodhound, Gibraltar, Lifeline, Pathfinder, Wraith. We talked about all of these characters, and I am so excited to have spent this time with you. It's a long one, but hopefully you guys have a little bit of learning throughout this entire process and are committed to the conversation of what should we do with these legends, what do you expect to see, and it's been a blessing to be around here for you guys and to hang out in this video. Thanks so much. Remember to click the link down in the description below. Get your Linksys Power of Wi-Fi 6E Hydra Pro 6E today and solve your Wi-Fi issues forever.